What I wish I knew at school, conquest isn't just battles and borders. Across the wind-swept plains of history, few names thunder as loudly as the Mongols, a people of riders and conquerors who carved an empire spanning oceans, deserts, and the vast spine of Eurasia. Their tales are legendary: lightning warfare, strategic brilliance, religious tolerance, and the forging of global connections along the Silk Road. Welcome back to Shadows of History series. If hidden truths and untold stories are your thing, you're in exactly the right place. Before we get started, hit subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Big welcome to all the new faces, and to my returning viewers. You're the legends keeping this going. Now let's jump straight into today's story. It's a good one. But there is another story, one that hides behind the armor, behind the heroism, behind the glorified chronicles of conquest. A story rarely told with honesty. A story many historians soften. A story often reduced to whispers, footnotes, or forgotten pages. Today, we unearth that hidden history. Today, we speak for those who could not. This is the story of the Mongols' atrocities against women. The story history has long tried to hide. To understand the suffering that unfolded in the wake of the Mongol advance, we must first step onto the grasslands from which they emerged. The Mongol world was a world of scarcity, a world where survival depended on unity, loyalty, and swift action. A world where women, Mongol women, often held surprisingly high status. They rode horses. They managed households. They advised husbands, sons, and even khans. Some even wielded political power. And yet, steppe society drew a harsh line between their women and other women. Inside the tribe, respect. Outside the tribe, captives. Raiding was an accepted part of nomadic life, and captured women belonged to the victors. So when Mongolia united under a single leader, Temujin, soon to be Genghis Khan, and the steppe turned outward, this tradition did not vanish. It expanded, it intensified, and soon it grew into something the world had never witnessed at that scale. When Genghis Khan led his armies into northern China, they faced a world unlike their own. Fortified cities, walls of stone, endless supplies, complex societies. The Mongols adapted quickly, and when cities resisted, they were shown no mercy. From the Jin dynasty's chronicles to Chinese eyewitness accounts, we see a consistent pattern, one that would follow the Mongols from China to Persia, to Russia, and beyond. After the siege came the suffering. Women and children were seized. Young girls were gathered and inspected. Some were taken by commanders, others handed to soldiers. Many were sold as property. One of the darkest early examples came with the fall of Zhongdu, modern Beijing, in 1215. Accounts described chaos. The starving, exhausted population flood into the streets, only to be overwhelmed in a wave of violence. Fire engulfed districts, screams echoed through alleys, and Mongol forces poured through the city searching for valuables, including human ones. Women, wealthy and poor alike, were taken with impunity. Chinese chronicles speak of entire neighborhoods emptied of their young women. This was not random, not the act of a few men breaking ranks. It was systemic, woven into the logic of Mongol warfare. The empire was expanding, and women were part of the spoils. If northern China was a storm, Central Asia was a hurricane. The Khwarezmian campaign stands as one of the most devastating conquests in history, an explosion of Mongol fury triggered by the murder of their envoys. Genghis Khan vowed total annihilation, and he delivered it. When the Mongols swept into the cities of Khwarezm, they were unstoppable. Bukhara, Samarkand, Gurganj, Nishapur. Each city left a trail of testimony from Persian chroniclers, among them Juvaini and later Rashid al-Din, describing horrors that shocked even experienced historians. The Mongols separated men from women. They killed the men who resisted, or sometimes every male capable of bearing arms. The women suffered a different fate. They were taken. Some were forced into marriage, some became camp slaves, some were traded across Central Asia, some died resisting, some survived by surrendering to the demands of their captors. One of the most haunting stories comes from Nishapur in 1221. After a Mongol commander, Genghis Khan's son-in-law, was killed, his widow is said to have ordered vengeance so absolute that animals, plants, and humans alike were destroyed. Whether embellished or not, the conquest that followed was catastrophic. Accounts describe women dragged from their homes, separated from families, and forced into servitude. Pregnant women were not spared. Noble women were used as symbols of victory, taken as concubines. The Mongols didn't just conquer Khwarezm, they erased it. And in that erasure, the suffering of women was immense. In the winter of 1237, the Mongol avalanche fell upon the Russian principalities. The tale of the destruction of Ryazan, though dramatic, echoes a theme repeated across multiple Rus' chronicles. Mongol soldiers taking every woman they desired after the walls fell. The chroniclers write of families torn apart, of women dragged into camps, of girls sold or given away to soldiers, of noble women forced to serve Mongol leaders. While the Russian accounts are emotional, even embellished in parts, their core aligns with records from China and Persia. A pattern, a method, a reality. Cities that resisted, Vladimir, Suzdal, Kiev, paid the same terrible price. Women were seized as spoils of war. Those who resisted often died. Those who surrendered lived, but not in freedom. When the Mongols spared Novgorod, not through generosity but logistical timing, the absence of mass atrocities stood in stark contrast to the devastation elsewhere. It proved what the chronicles suggested. If a city bent the knee early, its people might survive. If it resisted, the cycle of horrors resumed. Europe, in the mid-13th century, expected the Mongols to return, and they feared the stories carried by refugees. Reports from Hungary and Poland describe the same patterns seen across Asia. Villages burned, populations scattered, women taken. Clerics wrote of women fleeing into forests, swamps, even icy rivers to escape Mongol capture. Some survived, many did not. The Mongols did not remain long in Europe. but their brief presence left scars that entered European memory for generations. The suffering of women under Mongol conquest was not random. It was not accidental. It was built into the structure of the empire. 1. Women as spoils. After every major victory, captives were divided like livestock. High-ranking officers chose first, then elite troops, then common soldiers. 2. Concubinage as political strategy. Conquered noblewomen were used to symbolize the absorption of a defeated people. Their children could even enter the Mongol aristocracy. 3. Slave markets fueled by conquest. Central Asia's slave markets expanded dramatically during Mongol rule. Persian, Russian, Chinese, and even European women passed through these markets. 4. Lack of legal protection. Mongol law, yasa, did not explicitly condemn rape of captives. Violence against outsiders was not considered a crime. Only violence within the Mongol fold was punished. 5. Tactical sexual violence. In some cases, sexual terror was used deliberately to break morale, humiliate enemy elites, or incentivize soldiers with rewards after battle. This was not a unique cruelty in medieval warfare, but it was executed on a scale the world had rarely seen. Yet inside the Mongol nation itself, women held unusual power. Sorkoktani Beki, perhaps the most influential woman of the 13th century, ruled territories, shaped diplomacy, and raised sons who became powerful khans. Toragene Khatun governed the empire as regent. Ordai Khatun influenced policy in the Golden Horde. Mongol mothers commanded respect. But even these powerful women lived in a society that accepted the systematic capture of foreign women. They did not challenge it. Most benefited from it. Mongol women were free only because Mongol victories ensured they were not the ones being taken. It is one of the empire's sharpest contradictions. Empowerment for some, devastation for others. Why does this part of Mongol history remain blurred or softened in many modern narratives? There are several reasons. First, Mongol sources are themselves sanitized. The secret history of the Mongols avoids explicit references to sexual violence. It was a text crafted to legitimize, not condemn, the empire. Second, modern fascination with Genghis Khan often focuses on military genius and cultural achievements. Warfare atrocities, particularly against women, are pushed aside. Third, the victims left few written records. Most were illiterate. Most died without testimony. Their stories live only in second-hand accounts, often filtered through the pens of male chroniclers. Finally, historians sometimes overcorrect. Seeking to combat stereotypes of the Mongols as barbarians, some minimize the realities of conquest. But acknowledging brutality is not bias. It is honesty. The Mongol Empire forever altered the ethnic, cultural, and demographic landscape of Eurasia. Entire populations vanished. Others were displaced. Slave trades grew, gene pools mixed, sometimes through unions built on power, sometimes on violence. In Russia, in China, in Persia, in Central Asia, memories of Mongol atrocity remain vivid in local folklore and regional histories. They remember, even when global narratives forget. History is often written by conquerors, those who held the sword, those who commanded armies, those whose triumphs echoed across continents. But the true weight of history lies in the lives of the conquered, in the stories of those who had no voice, in the pain endured by the forgotten. The Mongol Empire was extraordinary, but so was the suffering it inflicted. The rise of Genghis Khan reshaped the world. Trade flourished, cultures mixed, empires were born and broken. Yet in the shadows of those achievements are the women who were taken from their homes, the women whose bodies became battlegrounds, the women whom history tried to hide. Their stories matter. Their suffering deserves acknowledgement, and their truth must be told fully, honestly, without apology. This is not a condemnation of a people. It is a restoration of memory. The Mongols built the largest land empire in human history, but they built it on lives, on families, and on the silent, enduring pain of women who never saw justice. Today, we finally hear them. Today, we remember. It's the quiet removals of language, family, identity. Between the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mongol advance did more than redraw maps. This was a 5-act system of cultural annihilation that targeted women as living instruments of power. Forced marriages and coerced reproduction spread new bloodlines while breaking old kinship ties. Public humiliation and ritualized abuse shattered communities' morale and social order. Women became human shields in sieges, bargaining chips in politics and vectors for forced assimilation. The result: entire peoples, diminished languages, weakened histories blurred, and millions of descendants carrying traces of that upheaval. This isn't sensationalism. It's historical method reading policies, records, and DNA to expose a deliberate strategy. Stay with us because understanding this past helps us recognize and resist cultural erasure today. Thanks for watching Shadows of History. This series is all about uncovering the forgotten stories and hidden moments that shaped our past. Each episode takes a lot of research, writing, and editing to make sure every detail is accurate and every story is told with care. If you'd like to help me keep creating these documentaries, you can support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee. Your support helps me dig deeper into the research, produce more episodes, and continue sharing the parts of history that often stay in the shadows. Even one coffee makes a real difference. Thank you for watching, for sharing, and for being part of this journey into the stories history left behind.